Christmas time when my children were little. I never knew what they were going to give me for Christmas. I really didn't care. You know, the way I said it, I still say it, is I'm a grown man and I have a job, thanks to you. And so if I want something, usually it's like another chess book or something, I'll get it, and I have it. So you can't hardly get me something that I don't really want anything. I'm happy. But you know, the children always would try to do something. And we of course would take care of them. So one Christmas morning, my children are fairly little yet. I'd say they're teenagers, okay? And so my daughter Rebecca has given me this package, and I open it up, and it's a chess book. Now the thing is, it's like if you, like I have a bunch of chess books, and so it's like a person who buys new golf clubs and he's still lousy at golf. And so it's like I've got a bunch of chess books. It doesn't make me better at it, but I sure like to get them, and I like to read them, and I like to study them, you know. So I'm looking at this chess book, and I'm looking, this is great. This is a great chess book. How did my daughter do this for me? And I realized the reason why she did it is it was my chess book. She had taken it off the shelf a couple months before. And so I'm looking for Peterson's book on the BOGO Indian defense. I can't find it anywhere. Come Christmas morning, there it was. She took my own stuff and gave it back to me. It was ingenious. It was not a bad thing at all, after all, was it? Because she got a book that she knew I wanted because I already had it. I wonder how many of our blessings are like that. They're never actually gone from us, but we need to sort of rediscover them again. And so it's not that God takes them away from us, but there's a way that God keeps giving the blessings back to us again and again. And then we realize that we had missed it. We didn't realize it was missing. But when we get it back again, we go, oh, of course. And so Christmas is like that. Jesus never really goes away, and yet we celebrate his entrance again and again into the world and into our lives in the holiday season. John the Baptist pointed at Jesus according to the Gospel of John and said, "Behold the Lamb of God that takes away the sins of the world." Jesus is what Christmas is all about, and Jesus is what makes us a church, as opposed to some other religion. We are the religion about Jesus, the religion of Jesus. Jesus is central to us. His teaching matters. Some Bibles have what's called the words of Christ in red. And what they do is they take a Bible and then everything that Jesus said, they make a completely different color, so it kind of jumps off the page. And I can tell you that there are good teachings in there, and I'd like to remind you of two of them to show how Christmas is not just the coming of Jesus Christ, but it is the coming of these teachings into the world, and I pray into our hearts and into our lives. One of the very important things that Jesus taught, according to the Sermon on the Mount in the Gospel of Matthew, is that God is love, is abundant love, is outpouring love, and is not transactional love. His teaching is that we are transactional. You scratch my back, I scratch yours. You do nice things for me, I do nice things for you. And this is often how we think about God, and it was how God was taught about for quite a long time. And that is that if you're good to God, God will be good to you, but if you're bad to God, God will be bad to you. But Jesus says in the Sermon on the Mount that God loves everybody. This is the way he says it. He says, if you're only nice to people who are nice to you, whoop-de-doo. In other words, no big deal. Everybody's nice to people that are nice to them. He says, Gentiles, tax collectors. He says, people who we think of as people that don't understand, even those people know how to be nice to their own family and the people that are nice to them. So he says that is nothing special. Transactional kindness is normal. He says that there is an extraordinary kindness from God. He says, God makes the sun to shine on the just and the unjust, and the rain to fall on the fields of the just and the unjust. So he says that we should love our enemies and do good to those who hate us, and to be like children of our Father in heaven. Not just giving back in measure, careful measure, what was given to us, but an abundance of giving, like God. It says, let your love be, and the word is teleos, all-inclusive, complete, whole, spherical, or the way it's often translated, perfect or mature. Let your love be whole, all-inclusive, like your Father's is. So that's the one teaching that Jesus brought that really takes some getting used to, because we live in a world of accountants where everything is measured, and we don't want to have it to lose out. We want a good deal, you know. Ideally, we would give less than we get. And yet, Jesus says the task is to give more than you get, because there's an abundance from God. So that's one of the teachings of Jesus that we're still learning, and that is that God is not like we are, all so careful to guard our scarcity of love, but is an abundance of love. And we still need to learn that teaching from Jesus. And then Jesus expounded on that in the end of the sermon, in the end of Matthew, when he talks about the sheep and the goats. He says, whatever you have done to the least of these, you have done to me. That's another thing that Jesus taught. These are words of Christ in red. And that is that whatever you do to the least of these, you do to Jesus himself. It's kind of like saying, when you mess with my family, you're messing with me. And who's my family? Who's not the family of Christ? Because even if you say they're an unbeliever or somebody that's not right, well, you can always say, not yet. Right? Not yet. Will God's love be able to be resisted? Who are you to say? Who are you to say? And so Jesus says in his teaching, whatever you've done to the least of these, you've done to me. Love one another. And so this teaching of love is what Christmas is about. Also, his example. Jesus lived what he taught, what he showed. First of all, he had solidarity with the poor and the oppressed. He was not born in a palace. He was born on the road. He was not born at home. He was not born at a hospital or a doctor's office. They didn't have those then yet. But as we know, in a stable out of town. In a stable out of town. And then it got worse. Then they wanted to kill him. And so then his family had to run and leave the country because they were fleeing for their lives. And so then he's first of all, he's born out of town on the road and spends his first night in his life in a barn. Shortly thereafter, they're on the run, getting out of the country to escape what I'm going to call the authorities. They have to leave and go to Egypt so that they won't kill him. There was a price on his head. He was just a little baby. And then later on he comes back and he teaches and he preaches and he reaches out to excluded groups. When people are lepers and people would stay away, it says he touched them when he healed them in this case. Something that you weren't supposed to do because people were afraid of getting it. But it says that Jesus touched the lepers. And it says that Jesus said of Mary and Martha, when Mary sat with the men and said, don't take this away from her. She's chosen the good thing. So, and when little children wanted to come to him, and they said, not now, he's busy with big grown-up stuff. He said, let the little children come to me. Again and again and again, you see him including the excluded. His people were fishermen and the peasants from Galilee. And so he associated with the lowly on purpose, because he was lowly himself, and ultimately he died the death of the lowly on the cross, where he was put up before a trial and publicly mocked and crucified. And so Jesus had solidarity with the poor for those who have been treated unjustly. And so what makes his teaching so good is he didn't just keep it safe, but he took on the authorities. When he overturned the tables in the temple, he said that what you're doing here is bad. You know, it got him in trouble. But it was trouble he needed to get into because he was doing what was right. So we have his teaching, we have his example. And the third thing we have is we have his presence. The church was born with the presence of Jesus Christ. Paul is going down the road to Emmaus, and a bright light shines on him. And he goes, whoa! And he goes, what is going on? And the word is, Saul, Saul, why are you persecuting me? And Saul says to the light and the voice, who are you? And the voice says, I am Jesus, and I am Christ, whom you're persecuting. And so it was the risen Christ that appeared to Paul. This is the foundation of the church. It wasn't just belief in God and belief in ethics. It was the power of the resurrection. It was an encounter with the divine that gave these men and women the courage to do what they needed to do, to build a new community in the world. So the presence of Jesus Christ is the third thing. So we have the teaching of Jesus, the example of Jesus, and the presence of Jesus. And that's really what can make our lives good. Because Jesus said, I came that you might have life, life in its abundance, in John 10:10. But what we have today often is struggles against the secular mind. And that is, we live in a world that God is excluded from so much. God is not actually excluded from anywhere. It's kind of like my daughter took the chess books were still there, but I didn't see them. In the same way, God is still here, but people live as if there's no God. People don't ask God for help. People don't seek God. People just are busy going around doing people things. And so it almost is like, so God doesn't matter. It's like a trivial point. Well, maybe there's a God, maybe there's not. I don't know. I guess everything's fine. Because God has become irrelevant in a way for many people. So we get a challenge. And that is that people then just try to find their own way in terms of what they think their life should be about. And where do they go for that? They go to their parents, maybe. They go to their friends. They go to the general culture. And what does our culture say is important now? Money. Money is one of them. They are essentially the three temptations of Jesus, is what the culture says. The first temptation, to turn the stones to bread, is taken as an analogy for the security, needing bread, needing to be secure, and there's no satisfying it. Ultimately, our security is in God. The second one is to be esteem and affection, to be famous or to be loved. And we all need to be famous and loved, but again, there's no satisfying that. We need to find our security ultimately, our significance ultimately in God, and then that obsession with power and control. So it's like power, money, and status. And yet Jesus, instead of power, had powerlessness. And instead of having money, he had poverty. And in the way of status, he was a Galilean peasant. And yet he turns out to be the King of Kings and Lord of Lords. And his crown of thorns turns out to be the best crown that the world has known. Not the great, great big ones made of gold and precious stones, but that ironic, painful crown of thorns. And so many of us struggle with our faith because we live in a world where faith is not important. We get inundated with advertisements about what life is about and how we can get there, and they don't really have to do with God or Jesus. And so we can say Jesus is a good teacher, a good example, but we don't have much of a sense of the presence of Jesus in our life to give us that power. So it's kind of like a 2/3 Jesus. Another thing that can happen is the baby Jesus and not the grown-up Jesus. And that is the baby Jesus, like my daughter that took my chest book and gave it back to me. When she was a baby, she was easy. When she was a teenager, she was not easy. And now that she's a grown woman, I have it hard to think about her as a grown woman, but our children are all grown up now. They think their own thoughts, they do their own things. And I need to see the wholeness of them. I can't go to her and pick her up and go, oh, my little girl. Those days were there, but they're gone now. And so now, instead of the little baby that might burp and cry and cuddle and stuff like that, now might disagree with me. And she often does. And it's good. And it's good. I wouldn't have it any other way. I want her to be her own person and be courageous and be able to stand up to me and everyone else so that she can live her life as best as she understands it to be. And so the baby Jesus is in some ways a safe Jesus, but he grows up. He grows up, and he brings teaching, he brings example, he dies on the cross, and he is raised from the dead, and he brings presence. Another issue is that, and this is one that I've had too. The night that I gave my life to God, I'm pretty sure that I did something like this, and it was like, Jesus, take over my life. I think that was sort of like what my prayer was. It was like, Jesus, take over my life. Now, the reason why that's interesting is I didn't say, Father, take over my life, or God, take over my life. I said, Jesus, take over my life. And then as I studied the scriptures and things like that, I didn't really see Jesus saying, pray to me. He always talked about praying to the Father. And so I stopped praying. I started praying in Jesus' name, but to the Father, as if these things all are important and matter, and I suppose they are, but the question becomes then, so it was rather than seeking Jesus, seeking whom Jesus sought. So the idea was to seek the Father, because that's who Jesus sought. So I thought that was a good idea. And I did, and I'm working on it. But what I discovered is that, according to our way, there is no separation between the Father and the Son. I cannot seek the Father without the experience of Jesus and the presence of Jesus. In the same way, neither can I seek Jesus without the presence of the Father. And so, it's a both and, not an either or. And there's two places to think of it as an example, but one is when Stephen is being stoned in the book of Acts, they're killing him. And he cries out when he's dying, and he says, Lord Jesus, receive my spirit, or Lord Jesus Christ, receive my spirit. It's like he's praying to Jesus. So what I want to tell you is, if you say, I don't pray to the Father, I pray to Jesus, I'm okay with that. And if you say, I don't pray to Jesus, I pray to the Father in the way of Jesus, I'm okay with that. I am okay with that. The same way if you say, I don't know about all the miracles and stuff, because I don't think that kind of thing happens, but I like his teaching, that's a good thing. That is a good thing. It's not a bad thing. When someone wants to follow the teachings of Jesus, my goodness, That is a good thing. When a person, even more than the teachings, actually wants to follow the example of Jesus and associate with people and include people, that's even better. But to get the full Jesus, it's also to invite Jesus as a living presence into our lives. So the abundant life that Jesus came to give us is the best Christmas gift of all, because it doesn't cost anything in the sense you can't buy it, because it's priceless. And it is a gift from God. Jesus is a gift from God. And the abundant life that we have is a life of wholesome relationships and responsibility and good living, living your life for some purpose. So I watched the Ohio State game, right? Some of you did? Yeah. I'm from Pennsylvania, remember, so it's just a passing thing for me. But, I don't care. So they were behind. And they had to show whether they really had what it took or not. And Wisconsin, there are real people out there too. And they love their team too. And they wanted very much to win too. It's a hard thing, sports. But they dug down deep and they won, and now they have a chance to maybe get in the playoffs and go for a national championship and win it or not win it. And then another year comes around. And then another year, and then another year, and another year. And one can wonder, when does it ever end in terms of the abundant life and the meaning of life? The reason why I'm saying this is, even if you win a national championship and you get the Heisman Trophy, you still have to get up the next morning and eat breakfast. You still have to get old, if you're lucky. You will get sick and you will die. That happens to everybody. And ultimately, the abundant life has some bright moments of success in it, and some moments of sorrow and distress. But ultimately, the abundant life that comes to us in Jesus Christ is such an everlasting gift that it is not limited by the ups and downs of ordinary living. And so it's better than a national championship, but don't tell the guys down in Columbus. But it's true. And that is that the real life, the real gift, the love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control, fruit of the Holy Spirit. I go to prepare a place for you, that where I am, there you may be also. That even transcends death and disease and illness and all the hardships of life. This is something that we cannot earn. This is not something that we cannot achieve, but this is something that is given to us by God through Jesus Christ on Christmas.